starts to change as you do maybe more dietas, or maybe more than doing dietas, as you do further healing. Then it seems like the voice starts to open more and more, and especially in the variación, of course, it starts taking on a quality of its own.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Definitely in the variación, something can happen with the voice that is very difficult to replicate in a normal state of consciousness. I would agree with that. Um, yeah, I definitely have a lot of fun playing with the vocal, kind of like vocal gymnastics sometimes in the ceremony. Um, what I've observed is that the deeper I get into the variación, sometimes, I don't know if you've ever heard, it's like you're not singing the song, but the song is singing you. Have you ever heard that? Yeah, there's something very interesting that happens. I don't know how to explain that, um, except when you surrender yourself and there's these like just intensity that is happening, that is inside of you. Is it in the plant? Is it in you? Is it in the vortex of the ceremony? It's really hard to, and I think to try to pinpoint it is to mentalize it and compartmentalize a phenomenon that is way bigger than that. And so I just like to go with it. And what I've observed is that the deeper I get into the variación, where I kind of lose or relinquish the grip on ego identity, and it just kind of, everything just kind of dissolution happens, which is, I very much like that. I know some people feel very uncomfortable with that. They feel like that's a very painful experience when things start to dissolve and they resist that. For me personally, when that starts to happen, I'm like, yes, thank you. You know, honestly, that's where I want to be. And so in that space, I'm not thinking I'm going to sing this Ikaro now. I'm not like getting my playlist lined up. That completely dissolves, and whatever happens, happens. And sometimes I don't even remember what I've sang or something like that. It's just really just flowing, channeling, whatever you want to call it. You're becoming a vessel. Things are moving through you. Sometimes what happens is, in my like visionary state, I start to see kind of like energetic form, which I feel is the Ikaro, or I work a lot with mantra too. And so, or the mantra, I start to see like an energetic construct or form. It's not static, it's moving. It kind of comes outside and then it comes inside of me. And then when it's inside of me, I open my mouth and then things start to come out of my mouth. And I don't really have any control over this. I can't replicate it if I wanted to. I think that's where the magic happens, you know, is really just allowing yourself to surrender completely. And that is not something that you can do just because you sit down for an Aya session. I keep coming back to, you know, hammering the same points again and again. This is a momentary, moment to moment, day to day practice that one must surrender to. And so these steps that I keep talking about, these kind of like yogic, these branches of yoga, this is something that I feel I try to implement just on a regular kind of basis, integrate into me. And so same thing with meditation. For me, meditation is like a fundamental, it's like a daily nutrient. I need to have it. It's something that I need to allow myself time and space every day to just let it all go, let it all down. Like you were saying about your hape practice, just let it go, right? And something, I don't know if you've observed this, Michael, but something I've noticed is I've started to get, over time, I started to get very attached to my meditation practice. And I started to get very kind of defensive about my meditation practice. Like nobody can interfere with that space and time. And what I started to observe over time was that I was compartmentalizing things again. It's like that natural tendency of gravity bearing down that density. And that compartmentalization is limiting, because ultimately what you experience in that letting go in your hape practice, and that letting go in the meditation, and that letting go in the variación, where everything can kind of flow through, is available to us all the time if we work to make the space to allow it to cultivate, you know?
It's a continuing process of letting go, and quite terrifying sometimes. especially in the Mariación. Um, the Ishpingo experience that we were talking about, that was quite overwhelming for me. And not because I was seeing dark stuff, not because there was massive, like painful purging or anything, but because divinity itself is such an overwhelming thing to realize about myself that it was, oh my God. And actually, in the last ceremony, I crawled over to the closest person that I could see and was saying, please, can you do something to lower this Mariación? Because this is way too much for me. And that's pretty much how I ended my stay at Tiaku. So Ishpingo is definitely a dieta that I'll have to go back to at some point.
Absolutely, absolutely. Something I wanted to say about that Dione always says, and I like very much, is he says, you can put the little box inside of the big box, but you can't put the big box inside of the little box. It honestly, Michael, took me a few years to start to really comprehend what that meant. And sometimes when I hear these same things over and over again, I'm just like, shut up, you know. And and what I started to comprehend is that this vessel is a tiny box, you know? And so when you're talking about the intensity of feeling divinity in this dieta, it's like trying to integrate the big box into the little box. It almost feels like the little box might explode at the seams, you know? And so that can feel really intense for someone who is not used to that kind of altered state of consciousness and that level of intensity moving through the physical being into the mind, into all the subtle channels. It can make people lose their shit, which happens fairly frequently. And so when we can just kind of really truly adopt, not on a mental level, but really integrate on a deeper level, that you can't put the big box into the little box, that you simply need to surrender the big box to the little box to the big box. You need to surrender your individual consciousness to the totality. And there, just go. And the breath is key. The breath is key.
Yeah.
The breath is the key. I highly recommend to you and to everyone who is listening to begin a daily breathwork practice. And if I may, recommend something very simple that is not going to be contraindicated and not going to try to teach you holotropic breathwork or anything like that, but something very simple to do is to just bring more mindfulness to the breath. So to slow it down and to elongate the breath. So really taking very deep and long inhalations and then very deep and long exhalations, and just doing that. Start, say, 10 minutes, and then build up to 20 minutes, and then from there onward. And so that is key as to program yourself with this kind of deep mindful breathing, because when you get into these intense experiences, and any woman, whether she is involved in a shamanic path or not, who has given birth, will tell you the importance of breath in navigating the waves of labor and contraction. Okay, there is same thing, it's for birth, it's for death, it's for all the transitionary portals that we go through. It's the key. As one of my mentors used to tell me, prana is the vehicle of life force. It is what life force rides in on. It is what life force rides out on. And so become friends with your prana. That's what he used to say. I think that's so important.